Like I said, I'm one of these people that growing up, you know how when you're teenagers, you can be really stupid, and you can try to see how tough you are, and how strong you are, and how far you can be pushed before you're broken. You know, the people that kind of take the ladder and hold it to your hand and go, "That doesn't hurt, that doesn't hurt, that doesn't hurt." It hurts. You just are so stubborn that you won't admit it until it's like, you know, okay, well, I don't do anything halfway. I don't do anything halfway. When I mess up, there ain't nothing left to salvage. When I mess something up, it's completely destroyed. But when I do something, when I'm working on something, I give 110%. I give 110. I give 110%. And I mean that's just how I've always been. So if I'm gonna succeed in something, but if I'm gonna mess it up, it's done. I mean that's just how I am. So several years ago, like I said, I've always believed that there was a God, and I've always believed that Jesus was His Son. I just knew me well enough to know that I wasn't ready to just say, all of me, here I am. I mean, I believed that there was a God, and I believed that Jesus was His Son, but the church that I grew up in, and what was fed to me was, you know, what the God was a very judgmental God, and God was up here like this, ready to just pat on my backside. And I grew up in a church that said, if you do this, this, and this, and this, you are so going to hell. But I also grew up with the, but if you don't do this, this, and this, and this, and this, you're going to hell. So you know what, either way, you know. And since I had already done a lot of this, this, and this, and I had not done this, this, and this, and this, you know. And so even though I knew that God was God, I even knew that Jesus was His Son, my thought was, yeah, that's good for all of them, but you know what, I've blown it. I totally just blew it. And again, when I mess something up, it's completely all the way. So anyway, I got into a relationship with someone that just so was not of God. And God was not allowed in our house. And I knew this was the thing though. When Hill and I got married, I knew he didn't believe in God, but I was ridiculous enough in thinking, but how in the world do you really just not believe that God is God? I mean, you know, okay, I understand you don't go to church, I understand, but really, I mean, it was so foreign for me to how does somebody really and truly believe there's no God? Mm-hmm. But that's who he was. And so anyway, life goes on, we had children, and God was completely void in our house. And I couldn't tell you how many years it had been since I had prayed. And my kids were growing up, and I started having really, really bad anxiety attacks, and just couldn't breathe. And I was on the way to work one day, and I literally in the car I was driving, and I kept looking up in the rearview mirror, and I kept clutching at the hand that I could feel like, I mean, I was strangling. I just couldn't breathe, and it really and truly felt like somebody was just doing this to me. I mean, I could feel it, and I just kept trying to do this. And I kept looking in the rearview mirror to see the hand that I could feel, you know. And I finally just thought, you know what? If I don't pull over, there's going to be a car accident. I really don't care if it hurts me, but I don't want to hurt anyone else, you know. I just kind of got to a point where, you know what? You can take me home whenever you want, you know. It's fine. But I don't want somebody else to get hurt in the process. So I pulled over the side of the road, and there was a Catholic church, and there was this bench in the parking lot. And I thought, oh, okay. So I went and sat down, and I just did something I hadn't done in years. I prayed. But do you know what I prayed for that day? I prayed for death. Please let me die. Please just, I'm a very strong person, so I wasn't going to commit suicide. Plus the fact I had children, but if God wanted to take me home, I was, okay. And I did. I prayed for the first time in years. And what I prayed was, please let me die. Please let me die. Or change me into whatever it is that he needs so that he will be happy, so that I can just breathe. And breathing became a huge please, you know. And so I started going to the bench every day. I would find, on Sundays when I wasn't working, I would find reasons to have to leave just so I could sit on that bench for just a couple of minutes so that I could breathe. I begged, please let me die. Please let me die. or change me into whatever it is supposed to be so he'd be happy. But I cannot live this way anymore. I cannot live this way anymore. So one way or the other, please. Okay, well, I've got news for you. He didn't let me die. Nor did he change me into whatever it was that this person over here wanted. He said no on both accounts. But anyway, so I kept going to that bench. And like I said again, I'm a very stubborn person. Not proud of it, it's just I'm a very stubborn person. And from the middle of October to the middle of January, every single day I visited that parking lot, and I cannot tell you the bad weather. I think God deliberately sent, I think that was probably one of the worst seasons of weather that we had. I sat through it every single day, it didn't matter if it was hailing, raining, I sat in, and it didn't matter how much worse the weather got. I would sit on that bench. Well, I finally had this, a friend of mine, she's confident, she goes, you know, you could go in there. And I went, oh, she was a very good friend of mine, but I hadn't dared, she just knew who she knew, you know, and I wasn't about to tell her all the mistakes I had made in my life. And plus I wasn't Catholic, and I kept thinking, you know, for one, I was doing good just to be in the parking lot. I was doing good just to be in the parking lot. That's really truly what I thought. I thought I was doing good, you know, I thought, you know, because I just thought I was, you know, when lightning strikes, I kept thinking, you know, I hope no one's around, because when I get struck, it's going to take everybody, you know. And so this one particular day in January, after months of sitting on that bench, the weather had finally gotten so bad, that I sat in my car, I looked at the bench, and I looked at those doors. I looked at the bench again. Hey. Looked at the doors and went, hey. Just, you know, and just gritted my teeth. And I actually stood up and I thought, you know what, I can weather this storm a little bit more, really. But I looked at the doors one more time, and I finally just, something in me broke. Okay, and again, I don't do anything halfway. So I got out of the car, slammed the door, said, fine. Literally, I just said, fine. I walked up to the side of that church. I did the doors like this. I did not look to the left. I did not look to, I had an attitude, let me tell you. I did not look to the left. I did not look to the right. I didn't care who was around. All I knew was that God had just really just made me mad. So I went all the way up to the altar, like I said, because I just figured, the way I looked at it was, okay, you know what? Tomorrow's headlines are going to be historic church collapsed. The roof has fallen down, and I didn't want to be somewhere off to the side just halfway. I wanted to make sure that when I brought the house down, I was really, you know, done, you know. So I went all the way up to, and I charged it. I didn't look anywhere around. I get all the way up to the altar, because like I said, I went full force. I went, here we go, you know, lightning is coming, the storm's coming, I'm being struck down. I went all the way up to the altar, got as close as I could possibly to touch it, and went, what the hell do you want from me? I did. I couldn't take anymore. I could not take anymore. I could not take any more of the strife at home and this, and I couldn't take any more of just, he had me on my knees, and I thought, you know what, I'm done. I'm done, and when I say I'm done, it really means I'm done. And I went straight up, and I did this, clenched fist. What the hell do you want from me? And I sat down. And when I sat down, I crossed my arms like this and went, fine! And I sat down. And when I sat down, I was just right there, and I was steamed. In total rebelliousness, did this, closed my eyes. And what I found out that day is when you come to God with an attitude, He gives it right back to you. when you come to Him and you go, what the hell do you want from me? He goes, really? I'm going to tell you. let me just tell you. So anyway, so I'm sitting there, and I had done this, and in front of me right here, in a very, very strong father voice, daddy voice, all I heard was Devin Mason White, which are my three boys. I heard it so loud and so clear and so, like I said, you know, if my kids would dare to talk to me, you want to know what I would turn around and do right back to them? You know, if my kids were there to just scream and yell at me, you want to know the tone that I would have with them right back? God had that for me. And I was like, what do you want? And so I did this. And what I heard was Devin Mason White. I jumped sky high. I jumped up. I had my eyes. And I was already saying, I'm sorry. And I was in the process of telling this person, because what I thought was in my tirade of coming up, that obviously someone had been in the room. I wasn't by myself. And I was in the process of fixing to tell that person, I'm so sorry. I'll leave now. I opened my eyes, looked around, there was no one there. There was no one there. And I did this. I was shaking, and it was just like, because I know what I heard. I know what I heard. And I know how he spoke to me. And it was just, I totally got that, you know. And I did. I looked around like, okay. Because as I was opening, I really just thought, someone, I had, in my trading up, that someone had really been there. Well, someone was really there. God was really there. And I came to him with an attitude, and he gave it right back to me. But the thing was, I would like to think that I'm a pretty good mom. I'm not perfect, but I would like to think that I'm a pretty good mom, but my kids were not on my mind at that particular moment in life. I couldn't breathe anymore. I could not breathe anymore. And I was like, what do you want from me? What? What? And he said, Devin Mason White. And immediately I had conviction. Conviction because you know what? The instant I heard Devin Mason White, all I could do was just sit down, and that great big huge just steam that I went running up to the altar with was completely let out. Because I sat there and just about cried. Because what I realized was my kids had no idea who God was. And they had never heard the name of Jesus. My kids, God was totally void. And when he said Devin Mason White, immediately I had conviction because I was, okay. My kids had no idea who you are. No idea. I went back to church the next day. And I started going back to church. And if I thought my life was hell before, it was nothing compared to the next 6 months that I went through. But you know what? My kids know who God is now. One of them has not accepted God, but he certainly has heard. He certainly has heard it, and he may not choose that right now. But it's not because I have not shared, and it's not because I have not told him, and it's not because I have not set the example. And
hello?
That's what she's. Ashley looked because I just was.
No.
And God said, He didn't let me die that day. He did not let me die that day. He did not change me into what the other person wanted.
Yeah, I'll be home in a few though.
And the root did not come down.
Alright, bye.
The root did not come down. But it was changed me into what He called me to be and who He called me to be. And two of my sons. One of my sons is so totally, he's just, I really think one of these days he's going to be a pastor. The other one is wrestling with God at the moment. And all I can think is, okay, well, good luck with that. And I can sit back and go, good luck with that. The other one, like I said, is just real where he's at right now, but I know that I heard. I didn't hear God say, I want a couple of your boys. I want one of your boys. I heard him say all three of their names. So it doesn't matter what's going on in their life right now. I just know it's a matter of time before they're on their knees. And I'm going to sit back over here so I don't get hit with the shrapnel.
So you knew that He wanted your boys to be known?
Yeah. The minute I was like, what do you want from me? What? And you know what I found out? It had really nothing to do with me. It had nothing really to do with me. My kids had absolutely no idea who He was. Do you know whose fault that was? Them growing up, I never introduced them to God. I never, they didn't even have a clue that I knew who God was. Because you know what, I let another lifestyle and I let another person completely rob me of that. And little by little by little, instead of my faith bringing him up, guess what his non-belief did to me?
Shut you down.
And my kids never knew. Never knew. They know now. They know now. And I guarantee you that, you know, they may not be making the same choices I'm making right now, but it's not from a lack of me not saying anything. It's not from a lack of the example I set now. And it's not because I keep my mouth closed or that I keep my faith hidden. They know now. And because they know now, they'll eventually have to make their own choices. But it won't be because I didn't share who God was. It's just that God had to get me to my knees, and God had to get me to that place, and God had to put enough pressure and something around my throat to get me to a point to where I was broken down. And he broke my resistance down, and he broke my stubbornness down, and he broke me down, and he got me to my knees. So that when I finally said, "What do you want from me?" He's like, "I already got you. I want them. I want them too. And I can't get them, and I can't have them unless I have you."
That's right. God doesn't just want you, he wants your whole family, your kids.
And you know, and if you don't know who he is, then how in the world are you supposed to show it to someone else? And the way I look at it is, you know what, I could blame a lot of people in my past for a lot of stuff. I can turn around and look back and say, well, that person and that person and that person and my great grandmother and that's what, you know, and I can look back. If I look back at the history, I can see where the river, you know, twisted and turned and curved and everything. But there has to come a time to where, okay, do I want to keep blaming that person and that person and that person and that person, or do I want to just say, okay, but you know what, the buck stops here. It stops here. You know, I can put a lot of blame on a lot of people, but ultimately, it stops here. So that the foundation that I'm laying and where I'm at right now, I have given them a solid, firm foundation, and the river starts here, and there's not a dam here, and there's not debris here, and there's not something to where the water's having to kind of like find trickle places, and just little rivets here and there and here. Because you know what, I've said no more, no more. And you know what, I can't blame those people anymore. I can't blame those people anymore. It's fresh and it's clean and it starts here. And I have a clean plate here. I have a clean plate here, and I have a clean plate and a firm foundation that my children can now jump, you know, like a diving board. You know, it's this, you know, they can go from here. They don't have to go from my garbage, and they don't have to just be another generation in a very long line of heartache and mistakes and sorrow and da-da-da. You know, they're not going to be able to look back with the mistakes in their life. They're boys. They're boys. They're human. They're going to make mistakes. But they won't be able to look. They won't be able to look that far back. They're only going to be able to look this far back, because this is the foundation I have laid, and this is the clean plate that I have fed them from. You know, do you have children? I mean, when you go to bake something, are you going to use a clean dish? When you go to feed your family, are you going to give them a clean plate, or are you just going to go get something out of the sink that's been used several times? You know, so my boys will not be able to look back that far. They're only going to be able to look back here, and this is the plate that I've served them from. This is where it starts.
With you.
They're boys. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to, you know, they're going to learn. They're going to learn. but they won't have to learn as hard as I did, and they won't have to go back as far as I did, and they won't have to become as broken as I had to be broken to get to them. You know, they're gonna have mistakes. They're gonna, you know, they're just like, you know, but they won't have to start from scratch like I did. And hopefully, by the grace of God, they won't have to start because they were praying for death.
Mm.
You know, when they each have their reckoning with God, it's going to be because they're going to know to go to God. When life doesn't make sense, and they're having
someone to come to.
Yeah, and life doesn't make sense, and they're having their heartaches, and they're having their issues, and they're having their, you know, just God never promises that life is going to be good here. And the reason He doesn't promise that life is going to be good here is because this is not where we're staying. This is just temporary. So when heartaches come, and heartbreak comes, and hardships come, they're going to be able to look back here, and then they're going to be able to look here. And they can wrestle with God all they want, but at least they're going to know who they're wrestling with.
Mm.
And they're going to know that there is a God to wrestle with. And that's the foundation that I'm giving them here.
So, the question is, what do we want God to do? You thought about it?
And it's just, you know, and each person has to make that choice. Each person has to decide how far down on their knees do they want kids. You know? And He says, life is going to be hard, but it doesn't have to be as hard as you want to make it. And you know what? And when heartache hits me and something doesn't make sense, I can go to God and I have someone that I can cry to. And I know who has heard my tears. And eventually in his time He will answer me. I cannot imagine the person that has absolutely no faith at all. Because you know what they have? They have no hope. They have no hope. I may be going through some trials right now. My son was in a really bad accident last night. But it didn't rob me of my hope. It didn't rob me of, you know, it hurt to see my son as bad off as he was last night. But I knew I had someplace to go. I'd go to my knees and say, Lord. And He said that I'm all powerful. I had someplace to go. And yeah, it was bad last night, but it didn't rob me of my hope. A person that does not have that, wow. Because when that person, trials hit, things hit, life hits, they have no hope. They have no hope. And I can't imagine, nor do I want to, you know. That's just it. That's just my shame for them.